In 58 BC, Julius Caesar embarked on one of the most ambitious military campaigns in Roman history, the conquest of Gaul. These early years, marked by rapid advances in strategic brilliance, would lay the foundation for Caesar's immense power and political dominance. The period from 58 to 57 BC was critical not only for Rome's expansion, but also for Caesar's transformation from a political figure into a legendary general. These campaigns demonstrated his strategic acumen, use of propaganda, and ability to adapt to complex tribal dynamics across Gaul. At the outset of his campaign in 58 BC, Caesar was appointed proconsul of Cisalpine Gaul and Transalpine Gaul. The political backdrop in Rome was one of increasing instability and factionalism. Caesar had formed the first triumvirate with Pompey and Crassus, and he saw military success as essential to building his political capital. The Gallic tribes were fragmented with a mixture of alliances, rivalries, and a long-standing resistance to Roman interference. This fragmentation would become both a challenge and an opportunity for Caesar. The first significant confrontation came with the migration of the Helvetii, a Celtic tribe from what is now Switzerland. Driven by pressure from Germanic tribes and seeking new lands, the Helvetii planned to migrate westward through Roman territory to settle in western Gaul. Caesar viewed this movement as a threat to Roman interests and as a perfect opportunity to assert Roman authority. According to his own account in Commentari de Bello Gallico, Caesar acted to protect Rome's allies in the region, although his true motives likely included the chance to secure a swift military victory and establish a strong presence. The Battle of Bibracte, fought in 58 BC, marked Caesar's first major victory. After a series of maneuvers and delaying tactics, Caesar engaged the Helvetii in a decisive battle. Despite being outnumbered, Caesar's legions employed superior discipline and tactics to outflank and defeat the Helvetii. The Roman victory was complete, with thousands of Helvetii killed and the rest forced to return to their homelands. Caesar used this victory to present himself as a protector of Rome and its allies, exaggerating the threat in his writings to justify his actions and enhance his reputation. The Battle of Bibracte, which took place in 58 BC during the early stages of Caesar's Gallic campaign, represented the first major military engagement of Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul and marked a critical turning point in both his military and political trajectory. This confrontation between the Roman legions and the migrating Helvetii tribe not only demonstrated Caesar's tactical genius and the superior organization of the Roman army, but it also provided him with a highly advantageous opportunity to establish his authority and legitimacy as a proconsular commander. The circumstances surrounding the battle, the strategy and execution of the engagement, and its aftermath all contributed to shaping the trajectory of Caesar's broader military operations in Gaul and the propaganda narrative he would carefully craft in his Commentarii de Bello Gallico. The Helvetii were a confederation of Celtic tribes inhabiting the region of modern-day Switzerland. Pressured by increasing threats from neighboring Germanic tribes and internal socioeconomic pressures, the Helvetii decided to abandon their homeland and migrate en masse to western Gaul in search of new territory. Their planned route would have taken them through the Roman province of Gallia Narbonensis, an area that had already been integrated into the Roman sphere of control. This proposed migration was seen by Caesar as a direct threat to Roman interests and to the security of Roman allies within the region, particularly the Aedui, a powerful Gallic tribe with long-standing diplomatic ties to Rome. Although Caesar later portrayed his intervention as a defensive reaction to a migrating horde of barbarians threatening Roman peace, modern historians generally agree that he saw in this situation a politically expedient opportunity to justify a military campaign that would solidify his position in Rome and provide him with the prestige he needed to compete with his political rivals. As the Helvetii began their westward march, Caesar acted swiftly. Initially, he blocked their path at the Rhone River by destroying a bridge and constructing a fortified wall and trench along the riverbank to prevent them from crossing into Roman territory. When the Helvetii changed course and attempted to move through the territory of the Sequani, Caesar pursued them northward, using the pretext of protecting Rome's Gallic allies and maintaining order. The Roman army, composed of several legions and auxiliary forces, followed the Helvetii through difficult terrain, using strategic positioning and harassment tactics to weaken and delay their progress. The confrontation finally culminated near Bibracte, a large oppidum, fortified town, belonging to the Aedui, located in present-day Burgundy. According to Caesar's account, he chose the battlefield carefully, ensuring that the high ground provided his legions with a tactical advantage. He reportedly had 4 veteran legions, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, along with 2 newly raised legions and Gallic auxiliary forces, giving him a force of approximately 30,000 to 40,000 soldiers. The Helvetii, with their baggage train and non-combatants in tow, likely numbered over 100,000 individuals, though Caesar's own figures are likely inflated to magnify the scale of his victory. The battle itself was fought in phases and demonstrated the discipline, training, and adaptability of the Roman military system. Caesar's legions began the engagement by advancing uphill toward the Helvetii, using their pila, javelins, to disrupt the enemy formation before engaging in close combat with their gladi, short swords. The Helvetii, despite their bravery and initial resistance, were at a disadvantage in terms of organization and battlefield cohesion. They fought in a dense phalanx formation, which made them vulnerable to flanking maneuvers. Caesar took advantage of this by ordering his third line of reserves to wheel around and attack the Helvetii from the side and rear, while the front lines continued their assault from the front. This multi-directional attack caused confusion and panic among the Helvetii ranks. The battle dragged on for much of the day. Caesar notes in his writings that the fighting was fierce and prolonged, and that the Romans had to push back not only the main Helvetii force, but also the allied Boii and Tulingi tribes who came to their aid. Despite being encumbered by their wagons, families, and supplies, the Helvetii offered stubborn resistance, retreating to their lager, wagon circle, and making a desperate stand. However, Roman persistence and superior tactical flexibility eventually broke their lines. Thousands of Helvetii warriors were killed, and the remnants of their force were routed. Following the Roman victory, Caesar faced the question of what to do with the surviving Helvetii. Although he had effectively annihilated their ability to continue their migration, he made a political calculation that was as shrewd as it was pragmatic. Rather than enslaving or exterminating the survivors, he ordered them to return to their homeland and rebuild their settlements, which had been burned at the beginning of their migration. Caesar's justification for this decision was strategic. He claimed he wanted to prevent the vacant Helvetian territory from being occupied by Germanic tribes, which would pose a renewed threat to the region and Roman interests. This move allowed Caesar to appear magnanimous while also strengthening Rome's buffer zone on the frontier. The aftermath of the Battle of Bibracte had profound implications. Militarily, it marked a resounding debut for Caesar as a commander, showcasing his ability to orchestrate large-scale maneuvers, exploit enemy weaknesses, and achieve total battlefield dominance. Politically, it bolstered his position in Rome, where news of his success was received with enthusiasm by the populace and wariness by his rivals. His carefully crafted reports, written in the third person and emphasizing his role as a just and heroic leader, were designed not only to inform the Senate, but to cultivate a public image of Caesar as Rome's savior from barbarian chaos. It is important to recognize, however, that Caesar's account of the Battle of Bibracte and the Gallic Wars in general was written with a propagandistic intent. His commentaries were not neutral military dispatches, but political documents aimed at shaping public opinion and justifying his actions. By emphasizing the size of the Helvetian force, the supposed threat to Roman allies, and the righteousness of his intervention, Caesar constructed a narrative in which he was the defender of civilization against barbarism. The reality, as suggested by modern scholarship, was more complex. Caesar likely provoked the conflict to secure military glory and assert dominance in a region that was geopolitically fragmented and vulnerable to Roman manipulation. In conclusion, the Battle of Bibracte was far more than a tactical victory over a migrating tribe. It was a carefully engineered demonstration of Roman military power and a strategic masterstroke by Julius Caesar. By defeating the Helvetii in a decisive and dramatic fashion, Caesar not only secured Rome's immediate interests in Gaul, but also elevated his own standing within the Roman Republic. The battle set a precedent for the conduct of the rest of the Gallic campaign, wherein Caesar would continue to combine military prowess, political calculation, and narrative control to expand Roman dominion and fortify his legacy. The confrontation with Ariovistus culminated in the Battle of Vosges. Caesar's legions, again demonstrating discipline and superior battlefield command, overcame the Germanic forces in a tough and chaotic engagement. Ariovistus was forced to flee across the Rhine, and many of his warriors were slaughtered. This victory not only eliminated a serious threat, but also sent a strong message to other tribes considering resistance. Rome was a force to be feared. Caesar's early victories were not only military triumphs, they were also masterclasses in psychological warfare and political manipulation. Through his meticulously written commentaries, Caesar portrayed himself as a virtuous general defending civilization from barbarism. His narrative reduced complex political and cultural dynamics into simple moral tales that glorified Roman power and vilified its enemies. These writings circulated widely in Rome and served both as reports to the Senate and propaganda for the people. By 57 BC, Caesar was emboldened to expand his campaign. He launched an ambitious effort to pacify northern and central Gaul. In that year, the Belgae, a powerful confederation of tribes in northeastern Gaul, rose in revolt against Roman domination. The Belgae were considered the bravest of the Gauls due to their proximity to the Germans and their frequent conflicts with them. Caesar recognized the scale of the threat and responded with a calculated campaign to break their resistance. The Belgae, aware of Caesar's capabilities, attempted to coordinate their efforts across multiple tribes. However, internal divisions and logistical challenges made sustained unity difficult. Caesar moved swiftly to prevent their consolidation. His first major success in this new phase of the campaign was the siege of the Remi stronghold of Bibracte. Though Bibracte was attacked by the Belgic coalition, Caesar's timely arrival and tactical deployment forced the enemy to retreat. Subsequently, Caesar engaged the Nervii, one of the fiercest Belgic tribes. The Nervii had prepared a trap along the river Sabis, modern Sambre, waiting to ambush Caesar's forces as they made camp. The ensuing battle was one of the most dangerous moments of the Gallic Wars. The Roman legions were caught off guard, and for a moment, the outcome hung in the balance. However, Caesar's personal leadership, including his direct presence on the battlefield and rallying of troops, turned the tide. The Nervii were annihilated, suffering catastrophic losses, and their resistance was effectively crushed. In the aftermath of this battle, Caesar claimed that only a few hundred Nervii had survived. Though modern historians question the accuracy of this figure, it served Caesar's purpose in Rome, to demonstrate the totality of his victories and the futility of resistance. These early campaigns had not only expanded Roman control, but also demoralized many Gallic tribes who saw the futility of open confrontation. Throughout these campaigns, Caesar was constantly balancing military aggression with political strategy. He worked to cultivate alliances with certain tribes while crushing others. For instance, the Aedui and Remi were key Roman allies during these years. By favoring some and punishing others, Caesar sowed divisions among the Gauls and made it harder for a unified resistance to form. Another essential element of Caesar's early success was his use of Roman engineering and logistics. His legions built roads, bridges, and fortifications at astonishing speed, allowing them to move rapidly and supply themselves in hostile territory. These feats of engineering not only gave him a tactical edge, but also impressed both Romans and Gauls alike with the superiority of Roman civilization. Caesar's victories in 58 to 57 BC also had significant consequences back in Rome. His popularity soared among the people, and even many senators admired his success, though others feared his growing power. His commentaries presented these victories as glorious and justified, framing him as a hero who expanded Rome's frontiers and defended its honor. By the end of 57 BC, most of northern and central Gaul had either submitted to Rome or been pacified by force. Caesar had proven himself not only a capable general, but also a master manipulator of public opinion. His ability to adapt his tactics, forge strategic alliances, and capitalize on his opponent's weaknesses made his early campaigns a model of Roman conquest. Importantly, the early years of the Gallic War set the tone for the rest of the campaign. They established a pattern, a mixture of overwhelming force, strategic alliances, swift retaliation, and masterful narrative control. Caesar's enemies were not only outmaneuvered on the battlefield, they were outwitted in the court of Roman public opinion. These initial victories were not just stepping stones for Caesar, they were foundations for an imperial legacy. The campaigns against the Helvetii, Ariovistus, and the Belgae demonstrated the power of a centralized Roman military under decisive leadership. They also revealed the fragility and disunity of the Gallic world, which Caesar expertly exploited. In retrospect, Caesar's early victories were about more than just expanding Roman territory. They were a demonstration of the ideology of Roman superiority and divine destiny. By defeating powerful tribes and framing the wars as defensive actions, Caesar gave moral cover to an imperial conquest that would eventually lead to the full annexation of Gaul. In conclusion, the initial confrontations and victories of 58 to 57 BC showcased Caesar's brilliance as a military commander and political tactician. From the Helveti's migration to the Nervi's ambush, Caesar responded to each challenge with a combination of daring, discipline, and deception. These early successes established Roman dominance in Gaul and secured Caesar's reputation as one of Rome's greatest generals. But they also marked the beginning of a brutal and systematic conquest, one that would transform both Gaul and Rome forever.